Okay, so now you've created the form design. What we now have to do is actually code the application so that when we run it, it will actually do something that's a little bit more meaningful. So I'll switch back across to my screen once again and share that with you. All right, so now we've got our application. Hopefully you're at the same stage where you've got two buttons, one which is called BTN jumping and one which is called BTN give up. The first one we want to code is going to be the BTN give up, because that's a fairly easy one. All we want that to do is the application to exit. So to code that, you double click on the button, and you'll see that when you do that, it takes you into the coding window. You'll see you've now got two tabs across the top, so you can switch between the form design and the form code. Okay, the CS is the C#. You'll see that this is made up of a number of different sections. So up the top here is a whole lot of different libraries or namespaces that this code is using. Okay, so those are things that have been imported, so you don't have to code those. When you create your own namespaces, you'll see we've got here a namespace button and jumper 2. You can create a library of code that can be accessed in other applications. So once you've written the code once, you just use it in other applications. Then over here, you can see that there's a couple of procedures or functions in here. So the form main, that section there, is one little function, one little procedure that's running within this code. You can also see here that because we double clicked on the button give up click, it's created for us another little section of code. And the little section of code is started by the curly brackets and ended by a set of curly brackets. Each line of code within this function needs to be finished by a semicolon. So you can see there that that's the semicolon in finishing the line of code called initialize component for the form main. So let's create our code in here, and the button give up click event is going to cause just one thing to happen, and that's going to be the application is going to exit. And you can see that I actually get helpers as I'm typing. So the application.exit, I can click on that and it will finish typing it for me. Or open and close a set of brackets because application exit is a function that runs, and then I finish that line with a semicolon. And so because I've now written that section of code, it's going to execute whenever I click on this button give up. I can test that by coming up here to the play button, the start button, and if I push play, then it will actually build my project. So my application is going to build. There it is. I've got my window. It's called button jumping. It's got a close button. And you can see here at the moment, no one can click on me as a button. But when I click on it, nothing happens because at the moment, I haven't added any code behind that button. When I click on the I give up, let me out button, it should close. So I click on that and it does. And you can see down the bottom here that we've also got some error code. So if I misspell something, exit, like that, you'll see my application gives me some helpers. Okay, first of all, it doesn't know what exit is. And so I can then use these little helpers to show potential fixes. It's got it right. I want to change exit to exit. And so I can then click on that and it will change it for me and correct it. If you do something silly like leaving a set of brackets off the end or a semicolon off the end, you'll see as well that it says you haven't finished this function and you haven't finished this line of code. So I'm going to put my brackets, put my semicolon, and now that button is coded. All right, pause me here, and can you code the button give up button? Okay, the next thing we want to do is code this button. Now the default event for a button is a click. And so when I double click on it, it takes me into that default event. But we don't want to use the click event for this button. We want to say whenever the mouse comes near it or whenever the mouse moves towards the button, we want this button to run away. So what we're going to do is come over here to our properties, and you can see these buttons across the top, and they'll let you change between the properties of this button or different types of the properties. So first of all, you've got the properties sorted by category. You've got the properties sorted alphabetical. You've got just your properties being shown, which is what's here. And then you've got this one, which is events. Clicking on a button is an event, or your mouse going over the top of it is an event. And so what we're going to do is find that the mouse going over the top of this button is actually listed over here under our events. And you can see there's our click event and a whole lot of events that happen to this button, or could happen to this button. So you can see you can drag and drop over the top of this button, or you can move your mouse. And if we scroll down to the mouse events, you'll see there's a mouse click, a mouse down, a mouse enter, or a mouse hover. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the mouse hover event. And so when I double click now on, not on the button, but I double click on this event, it's going to take me to the code window, and you can see here that I can program the button jumping mouse hover event. So in here, what I want to happen is when the mouse hovers over the top of that button, I'm going to change a property of that button. So what I do is I type the name of the button jumping, and the property I'm going to change is the left property, because that's how far it is from the left side of the form. And what we're going to do is say when the mouse moves over the top of that button, we want the left property to change to 100, which is going to move the button from where it is over to the left-hand side. And then I'm going to finish that line with a semicolon. Now that's going to move the button to the left when I run the application, but I haven't told it to jump back if the button is on the left. So this will get us started. Let's press play. And you'll see now that I've got my I give up. I hover over that, it doesn't do anything. But when I come up and I hover over the top of the other button, it jumps to the left. Now, if I come over here and hover again, it's not doing anything because it's already at the position 100 pixels from the left-hand side of the screen. So we're going to have to add an if clause in here that says if it's already there, we want it to jump back. And if it's not already there, we want it to jump to the left. So let's go back to our code, and we're going to say if button jumping left is currently equal to 100. So I put that inside of a round bracket. Then, now the way a then works is you put a curly bracket, then you write the words else, and then you do curly brackets again. The way an if statement works is you say if, then the thing that goes inside the first set of brackets is our condition. We then have our what to do if the condition is true, and write the word else, and what to do if our condition is false. So if button jumping left is currently equal to 100, then what we want to do is make our button jumping left equal to, and we're going to make it equal to 400, which moves it away. Otherwise, we want to make it equal to 100. So if it's equal to 100, then jump to position 400, else jump to position 100. And because that's a line of code, we need to finish that with a semicolon and finish that with a semicolon. And you'll see here that I've actually got a little problem because it's saying that you can't set the button jumping left equal to 100 inside of this little condition. So we actually have to use double equal to, which means that rather than setting it, it's actually testing it. So a double equal means check whether or not button jumping left is equal to 100. And so this is going to check whether or not button jumping left is equal to 100, jump to position 400, otherwise jump to position 100. Let's compile and start our application and see how it goes. You can see it jumped to 400 and it jumped back. And each time I hover over the top or my mouse sits on top of it, you can see it jumps to the other side. I give up, let me out. All right, give that a go and see how it runs for you. Stop me here, make sure you pause, jump back and rewatch if you need to, and add that code to your application.